Hey, Karl.
Well, good evening, Miss Kelly. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
It's Wednesday.
It
They they
is.
they they call this Hump Day in some
Yeah,
circles,
it's
right? I
rough.
don't know if that's an appropriate term to use, but you know, it's Wednesday.
It is
It's also Ash Wednesday for
another
those who
day.
observe Ash Wednesday.
It is, and I didn't realize it until I was walking through the office. Well, the hallways, and you see people with
Right.
ash on the forehead. Like it doesn't seem like it's time yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Just it
Well, it
feels
seems
like
like we just had Christmas, right?
yeah.
But with the liturgical calendar, it changes every year and all that. So, well, not even the liturgical calendar, the Christian calendar, I would say it that way, changes every year. And I think it has to do with, I don't know if it's the moon or I don't know. I'm not a theologian, so I don't know
The
why
Jewish
that date
calendar,
changes.
because
But
Passover is
all right, Passover. Right, that's right. It's Passover. You're right
yeah.
about that. It's
So
fine.
that's why.
It's connected to Passover. You're right. Okay, thank you for reminding me. I
Okay,
need to
cool.
brush up on my religious studies.
Every once in a while.
Well,
Gotcha.
you're in training, so you got one up on me on that.
Okay. Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that because my son, the oldest son, which is the middle child, the one in the Navy, the three of us, actually, it might have been all the children, Carl. It's quite possible all three children and I were somehow talking. And because no one lives in the same house, I don't know how that was happening because it wasn't Zoom. But,
Mhm.
anyways, um, something came up in conversation about Moses. And I was like, I don't think that was Moses. And the middle child was like, it was Moses. I'm like, really? It's just like for the life of me, I'm like, but the things that have happened to Moses are pretty much like that's Moses. But anyways, yeah. So studying.
You're the second person who's brought up Moses in a conversation today, because I was talking to someone earlier today who I met during a workshop that I conducted. She lives in Illinois, and we were doing a Zoom, and then I mentioned I was adopted, and she's like, "Oh, Moses was adopted," and so because we were getting to kind of like a bit of a spiritual religious conversation along with what we were talking about, and she talked about Moses and how he's adopted, but how he used his privilege of his position to help his people. So anyway, that's that's kind of interesting. So anyway, tonight we're here.
We
So
are, and I don't mind talking to you and everybody else, but today's one of those I could just not talk to anybody nights.
yeah, well, that's how we didn't do
Like
it last week because I was done. I wasn't even capable of engaging. I was just beat. And it's so funny. You and I are always talking about that idea of self care and not putting too much on your plate and all that. That's what I did last week. I really and there were things that I agreed to participate in, and they were good. I was on this great panel by a friend. Her name is Reverend Dr. Sarah Lund, and she wrote a book called Blessed Union. Um, uh, it's about mental illness and marriage, and how mental illness affects marriages and so forth. It's really so. I was in this panel to talk about marriages and mental illness, and along with several other people. And then I had something going on another night, and then even Wednesday, I think I did something earlier than we were supposed to meet. But by the time it came, I was like, I can't. I'm just done.
and that
Can't do it.
happens. It
Oh,
just and last week was overly booked for me. This week is like a moderately booked week, but last week, especially Wednesday, Thursday,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
everything was back to back Zoom. I had about a
Mm-hmm.
half an hour one day where I was able to, run and get something to eat. And then about an hour, so 45 minutes or so, the next that it's, I mean, there's no time to get up and go to the bathroom, right? I mean, you talk about self care, but when you have these meetings scheduled back to back to back to back, it is entirely too much. And Friday when I got up, it was just, I couldn't move. I was physically exhausted from just being on stage for
Right.
2 straight days.
Yeah.
It's brutal. It was brutal. And I think now this is still the after effects of having too much to do last week. But I am
yep.
with the time off. Monday was the holiday, but I had scheduled a presentation. I was on a panel discussion for Delta Sigma Theta sorority with Dr. Davis and
Are you Delta? Delta?
No.
Oh.
No. And Dr. Ansari. So we were the 3 panelists on Monday. But I thought at the time that I scheduled it, that I thought it was a regular work day, but it was not. But that's okay. I got up and I got dressed for everybody. And as soon as the panel was over, I got undressed and got into bed. It's good. It's good. But it was a great discussion.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, that is still on time, right? That had I prepared differently, I wouldn't have been, it would have been a non-issue, right?
Yeah.
It's all good. These are the things that we go through.
Yeah. So, we're, it's interesting how, and I was saying to you before we jumped on that I'm kind of in a period of self-reflection, and it's not even related to this time of year, with Lent, even though that is a time of, many people use it to reflect and to consider, what they do in their lives and making changes and so forth. But even leading up to this, so, I realize more and more that, well, first of all, the value of therapy, I've talked a lot about that. And I have an appointment with my therapist tomorrow, and we haven't met in a while. But, it really is. And I said it, I did a workshop a couple weeks ago that I led. And I mean, one of the things we talk about in the 12-step program that I belong to is, you've heard the same thing, but progress, not perfection, right? In other words, I mean, perfection to people like me and you is that's not a realistic concept to put that expectation on yourself. But I'll speak for myself. I try to do that anyway. Sometimes I think even though it's not realistic, I still try to, and I'm not a perfectionist, but I still want to do things perfectly, if that makes sense. Right. I mean, I'm not the kind of perfectionist that gets caught up in obsessive and compulsive, behaviors to correct or to do things like that. But it's just the idea of being that example, and I mean, frankly, both you and I, with what we do, we're out in the public a lot, and I think sometimes, there's the public persona that people see, but then there's also us as human beings.
Yeah, and it's tough because especially now, or more so now, there's this. I don't believe in perfection, and my motto is never perfect, always excellent. Right? Like it's never going to be perfect, but I always strive for excellence. But even in that, like I just want to lay back in the chair and spin around in a circle. Like, can I do that for 30 minutes? That's and that's how I feel. And but then at the same time, it's still, you're still on, right? And that's still unprofessional, even though this is not our this is just us talking, right? It's still talking on social media.
Right.
Like I really don't, I'm taking out my hearing aids. Like I'll still be able to hear you though.
Okay. That's good. I can be having a conversation with myself real easy.
Yeah, I'll just like nod.
Nod, smile.
But it's this expectation, right? Like you always have to be on and you always have to have on the right outfit, even though it's like only from the shoulder up or like
Right.
waist up, but it's still, you still have to make sure your stuff is right and people can't be walking. But it's a lot of pressure being on TV all day.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Just
I mean, and that's how, once again, I think you talk about the new work environment that we're in. It's for not everybody, because not everybody has jobs that require this.
right,
Um,
right.
and some don't have jobs at all. Unfortunately, they've lost their jobs, even those that were in professions that did this kind of, that would need this kind of
Mhm.
thing. So I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. I feel very fortunate to be able to work. Um, um, but I think that's not what we're really talking about. I think we're talking about the idea of, well, I think a lot of it has to do with authenticity. And I've been thinking a lot about that recently. Um,
Mhm.
being genuine, being congruent. That's a word I learned in my, counseling classes, right? Having your insides match the outsides, so to speak, and then being your true authentic self. And I try to do that. And I think we do that here. In fact, I was telling someone, the person I was talking to earlier today, I was telling about our program tonight. I said, we're just two people. We have, we live with a mental health condition and our conditions, and then we keep it real. We talk. And I think this is nice because it it doesn't require us, we kind of step out of that professional mode,
Yeah.
right? Because we're not speaking from that perspective. We're not doing a presentation. We're
But
not.
it's still, you're still personal Carl on, right? You're still
Oh yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
though.
I get that. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's still, it's still on. And I think for me that's the biggest issue is I am a goofball, and if I really I don't see why I can't spin around in my chair and talk to you at the same time. Right? But then it is, well, people say, oh, Kelly's, illness is flaring up, or I wonder if that's a symptom of it is, trying to make sure that I present a, and no one has asked me to be the spokesperson of Black people with borderline personality disorder, right? But I feel like it's, and maybe it's a cultural thing, right? Like you represent the family, you represent, your parents, you represent, when you leave this house, you better make sure that you represent, and you better not have, so and so calling and say. So for me, I think maybe that's a part of it. Um, that there are people out there that are in positions where they can't talk about, how they feel and mental health conditions and, challenges because of repercussions. And here I am acting privileged because I can and do, and I show out.
Mm,
That's the landscape right there.
mm, mm. So I hear you too. Once again, when you talk about the idea of representing and being an example, right? And I think one thing that you and I can both relate to is that through the work that we do, we've kind of put ourselves out there,
Yeah.
right? We've done that. I mean, at least for me in the beginning, um, it was intentional. I mean, with a lot of the work I did, and to not just to be out in the public, but just to, the work I was doing was very active. And when I was working with the Mental Health Association, that's really when it started for me in 2010. No, when was it there? 2014. Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry, 2010. When I worked at the MHA. No, I'm sorry, 2014. I'm getting my dates all confused. Remember, I was at the MHA in 2014 to like 2017. And when I was there, I really, began to do things, and it just kind of took a life of its own. I guess I'm trying to say, when I would do things, presentations and workshops, and and then there would be media inquiries to the MHA, and when someone the CEO or the executive director wasn't available, a lot of times they'd be just direct to me. I became that person because I was the director of community advocacy, and I like doing that stuff because that's I like this kind of thing. But then I became the chair of the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition a couple years ago. Plug for the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition. Take the pledge at letstalkstigma.org. That's a resource I always forget to mention at the end, so I'll probably say it again tonight. I thought about that earlier today. But anyway, so these things have happened, but now through the last couple of years, and once again, kind of venturing on my own, other opportunities have come up, and I feel very fortunate and a sense of privilege with these things. But with it comes responsibility. I think it's a part of it. I think what you're trying to say. There's a responsibility to be responsible and to be, to do the right thing and to show up and I mean, not to say that you can't show, who you are or be vulnerable, but I think there is a sort of this thing where, you're expected to produce. I'll put it that way, right? With projects, I know, like even with the work I do, I have contracts and things like that. I work with people. There's you got to deliver.
It is,
and
and it is still you are still representing. It's not just you, not just me, but even though we are in our off-duty selves here, we are both still very much our organizations. Like I am Front Seat Life. You are Shallowhorn Consulting. So spinning around in the chair is even though it's what I want to do when it's
look at that old Front Seat Life spinning around. What's that Front Seat Life doing?
Spinning around in the front seat. Right. It goes back to that reflection piece. And again, that's a part of the life I have chosen this. It just doesn't mean that it's always.
Yeah. And, it's funny because, I mean, sometimes you see, and I'm not saying that we're celebrities by any means, but you see these big celebrities right now, like, for instance, I'll just say it, like Britney Spears with all the stuff she's going through right now. Right. Man, I remember that was the reason why she is the reason why I spoke out, many years ago. And the story about when I wrote the story was in the paper, because that was when, she was in the news for all the things that she was, having to go through. But now, I mean, she's not to say that she's the poster child, but it's almost like she's the poster child for celebrities who have mental health disorders, who are challenged, and I mean, her life has been, you feel bad for her, but it's like people have kind of put her out there, once again as an example, and I can't imagine that pressure when you have literally millions of people,
right,
fans, if you want to call it that, basically, watching virtually your every move.
And judging. It's not even, I mean, watching is bad enough, but it's the judging part. I think that,
right, there you go. Right.
That really stands out. And we were actually studying Romans 15 in Bible study, and judging people came up in our conversation. So it is, it's not my place to judge. And even though I may not, or, I do my best not to, it doesn't mean that everyone else is in that same position or has that same perspective. Yeah. And unfortunately, we're judged by things that we have no control over. Judged for being a woman, judged for being born male, judged for being Black, judged for, being adopted, judged for being sexually abused, there's all these judgments, right? Addiction, none of it, we didn't ask for anything.
Let me say something. It's so funny you mention that, because I listen to The Breakfast Club, right? The Breakfast Club radio show. You know what I'm talking about? And I listen to podcasts. So I don't listen to a lot about it, but I listened to the podcast this morning. But I heard one that was actually from last week, and they had Reverend Kirk Franklin on. Okay. And of course, he's a real. What's going to talk about someone who's in the public eye, who's really out there. But he was talking about judging, right? Because basically, all kinds of people get judged for everything, and you, just like you said, it's hard to not judge. Even though people try to say they're non-judgmental, we all judge.
You're all, right. You can work to be less judgmental, but it's an automatic response of the brain. I mean, that's how we know whether or not something appears dangerous, right? It is definitely a benefit to have the brain function in the way that it does, but at the same time, we have to be cautious and exercise wisdom and kindness and empathy when it comes to our thought processes and how we treat people. Which, so if you ever stumble across me online or in an office somewhere spinning around, slunched over in my chair, I'm fine. I'm just having a moment.
Oh, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Self-judgment due to misinterpretation is the worst. I didn't tell anyone. I woke up from my suicide attempt at ECMC. So in my mind, all 3,000 ECMC employees knew that I was, a patient at the hospital because I, tried to take my life. So I, always am trying to be proactive and getting ahead of things before, it becomes an issue. And that was one of the things that I did. And then the news did an article. Oh, Scott Scanlon
Scott Scanlon. I remember the article. I remember that article.
Yeah, that's actually, I love the picture that they took. It's on the website. It's like the website. But I gave them, I sent the article. He sent me the article first, so I gave it to the folks at the hospital because there was nothing wrong with it, but you need to know that this is what an employee in my position is doing outside of work hours. So
but Miss Kelly, when you got that fellowship, they put that out there too.
They did. Going back to self-judgment, right? It's because of all those things, the fellowship was something that that followed the journey, right? But always wondering, and I've done this, I can't tell you how many times, I really would like to work on that project, but maybe they won't give it to me because they think I can't handle it because of the depression. So then I only told them about depression and anxiety. They didn't even know about borderline personality disorder. Right. And that self-judgment has probably kept me from asking to participate in certain things, misreading what other people, I don't even know what you think. So how can I misread what you're thinking? There's no way for me to even know. But putting what I think your thoughts are on a situation, right, without saying, how does this apply? Is it applicable? Right. Am I understanding this, to mean A, B, C, D? And just assuming, oh my gosh, they probably, they just pity me. I've said that, I don't pity myself, but they pity me. And that's why they won't fill in the blank,
Right. And it kind of ties in with the idea of self-stigma.
Yeah.
That's another form of self-judgment, the self-stigma for people who have mental health conditions. So
yeah,
and
it can be detrimental, and catching it, I think, is a big part of recognizing, like when we talk about triggers, it's not. I mean, it is also the that is an example of a trigger, right? The misinterpretation and being judgmental towards self can lead into, for me, a long list of issues, right? So I've got to cut that off early because that whole thought process is a trigger in and of itself, right? So knowing when that starts, to cut it off, roll it back and really state what's actually happening that I can see, right? That I've heard, that I've read, versus what I think somebody could be thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's but that's part of the journey, and at least my journey, your journey, and I think it's a big part of it is also it ties in the idea of self-acceptance too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then tonight, I mentioned before we got on that we had a church service in commemoration of Ash Wednesday tonight by Zoom, and one of the things that was mentioned was forgiveness for oneself and forgiveness for others. But I think self-forgiveness is the hardest thing to do to figure out ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. I'm not
It's a
saying
journey.
it is a journey, right? It is a journey.
When you recognize that it's a journey, even a step backwards is forward progress because it's still a part of the journey, right? At least that's my take on a journey. Just so long as you know you're on the journey, even if you have to turn around or get turned around or take a step backwards, it's still forward progress.
Well,
Because
journeys aren't linear. A life
right,
journey is not a linear process. It's not like A, B, C, D, E. You go backwards, forward, sideways, and up and down.
right, right.
it's like 360 degrees at any given point, depending on what
Right.
happens.
Sit on the side of the road for a while.
By the way, I got my
It's
car back today. Speaking of which,
it,
side of the road.
it's all.
That accident. Finally got it back. All nice and done. Nice and fixed up.
You have
But
earned a good night's sleep, Karl. I'm just saying. You have been through a lot.
it's been a couple weeks. But I go to Costa Rica on Sunday for
Super exciting.
the filming of Reversed. It's going to be released in September on the WGN network as well as Cox, which is like a cable network. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm sure if you have like Dish, whatever, you could probably get WGN. I don't know if it's available on other cable providers around here, but
I've
some
seen
form of
it,
fashion,
the
hopefully.
network.
What's that?
I've seen the network name.
Yeah. Well, WGN. Yeah, it's a definitely a network that you can access. But that's what the plan is. And like I said, I leave Sunday morning, and talk about a journey. That's gonna be a journey.
Yes, and you won't be back on Wednesday, so
We'll not be back. But you might just sneak in a guest, or you might just take the week off.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's all the way next
So,
week.
but my plan is I'm coming back. I'm gonna quarantine when I come back in a hotel until I get my test. I'm gonna do a rapid test when I get back, but I'm gonna take a couple nights, a few days in a hotel before I come home to make sure I'm safe to come home.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, this is going to be an interesting trip. Working with the folks. I've met each of them. I called each of them, the three guests, the three people that are the focus of the program, those that live with diabetes. And I talked to all of them, and they're fascinating people, fascinating stories. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And, and I said each one of them, it's going to be very spontaneous, which I think that will allow for some good, solid process-based discussion. I'll put it that way, to use that, kind of accounting lingo.
So excited. Karl, if you look at just all of the things that we do, it's a lot. And I don't think I give us enough credit. I don't not give us credit either, but I just see us as two people, like, Kelly and Karl. But when you think about the work that you do, when you think about the work that I do, you're going to Costa Rica. I was in South Africa for ministry. The books and the writing and the events, and not just, prior to Zoom, it's a lot. So high five and kudos, man.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Kelly. And I was, like I said, I'm referencing once again the person I spoke to today, who was really, we had a great conversation for someone I never talked to before, really. but it's kind of like it's true that the sum of your life experiences is brings you to where you're at today. And so I look back at my life and I think about all the things I've done, all the experiences I've had, and for better, for worse, that brings me to where I'm at today. But I also believe, and this is my heart of hearts, that the power, the God of my understanding, as we say in my 12-step program, the God of my understanding is guiding me and is allowing me these opportunities to do what I've always wanted to do since I got into a helping profession 28 years ago, 29 years ago, which is just to help people. Because that's where it came from. I just wanted to help people. That's why I became a counselor. And that's been, like I said, the theme of my career. All the jobs I've had have been about helping people.
I think it's amazing that that can be a core principle, and yet we all end up in various fields, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing things that, positions that aren't even, what one would consider a services or a caring, type of position,
Mm-hmm.
with the goal of helping people, right? So, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, right, you can definitely be in a position to help people.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I have, I don't know if I should mention this, the little project that we're working on with Dior, or should I just keep that quiet?
Well, let's tell people about tomorrow. So tomorrow,
Yes, tomorrow. Right. You go ahead.
well, there's a panel discussion. I don't know, Karl. So in the, NAACP.
Yeah. So there's an
and
NAACP discussion, roundtable discussion on COVID. Kelly is one of the panelists, but the focus is behavioral health.
yes.
So we have Dr. Kenyani Davis. We have Dr. I can't remember Dr. Pakai, his first name, but Dr. Pakai from ECMC.
Yogesh Pakai. He's the clinical director of psychiatry.
Right. We have, oh gosh, I can't remember the other panelists. I'm blanking.
I'm looking for the
Oh, you got the flyer? But anyway, so it's at 6:30. And if those of you who are watching want to view it, you can go to the Buffalo NAACP chapter Facebook page where you can watch it as it streams live. So that's tomorrow night, Thursday, 6:30. And we had one already in January, which was excellent. Great program.
It's not on our page.
So
yeah.
But anyway, it'll be good, and I look forward to hearing. And there's also be an opportunity for questions and answers. There'll be an opportunity for those viewing to submit questions, and we had great questions last time. I remember
we did. Reverend James Lewis.
Oh yes, Reverend Lewis. Yes.
He is the moderator. So listen, if you know Reverend Lewis, it's going to be a riot.
He's good.
Doesn't even matter what the conversation is. We may not even talk about mental health in COVID tomorrow. There's no telling. So I would just come just for the show, guys.
He's amazing.
I haven't seen him in a while because he retired, but I still see him in the hall sometimes. But yeah, so that is Saturday. That's Thursday. Tomorrow, I'll find the link and put it on the page for everybody. And then. No, I think we should wait on that.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's why I asked before I said anything.
I think we should wait.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's coming, guys. You just wait. It's going to be big.
We're working on. Really cool project.
Yeah, that's exciting work.
Yeah, and it's a first of its kind. So just stay tuned.
It's going to be good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 9:05.
Yeah, we kind of, we went for it tonight. We really. So, do you care to share some resources? Do you care to share some resources?
Oh, because we do that every show. Yeah. So first of all, folks, I'm sleepy. But if you have any questions and you don't know where to go, you can dial 211 on your phone or go to 211 in your web browser. This is actually a nationwide resource, 211. If you do a keyword search and look up services, if you are, thank you, Dan. And Dan said, enjoy your trip, Karl.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
If you are looking for resources, you don't know where to call or where to go, you can start with 211. If you are having a medical emergency, please go to the nearest emergency room or dial 911. We still need to address emergency situations as emergencies. We don't want folks staying home and deciding not to travel and go to the hospital. That's still a thing that we're seeing. So please, if you're having a medical emergency, please go to your nearest emergency room or call 911. And I really have more, but that's all I have. I got nothing.
What about the COVID helpline? 1-866-863-9314. Is that the number? Maybe look it up while I'm sharing mine. I think that's close to the number, but we want to get the right number. Project Hope. But in the meantime, if you are looking for local resources, if you're in West New York, you can contact the Mental Health Advocates of West New York at 886-1242. Also, Mental Health America, if you want to take an anonymous mental health screen, just to see if you feel, you may be feeling some things that you feel you might need to address, they have a free anonymous screening. So you just Google Mental Health America, you can take the screen. If you are in crisis and you're feeling distressed and you're feeling at risk of even taking your life, it's gotten to that point. Remember, feelings change and things get better. So I would encourage you to call Crisis Service of Erie County at 716-834-3131 or Niagara County 716-285-3515. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-TALK, or you can text HELP to 741-741. And as I said before, take the pledge to end stigma at the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition webpage at letstalkstigma.org.
Oh, I put the number in the comments. You don't want to read it? No?
What's that?
I said you don't want to read the emotional support helpline in the comments.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. It's 1-844-863-9314. Right. Thank you, Kelly. I'm sorry. I had it totally wrong. 1-844-863-9314. That is the New York State Emotional Support Line, otherwise known as Project Hope. You see the commercials on TV now. So please, and that's just for if you are in need of someone to talk to. It's not a crisis, but we all need support currently, and it's a great place to reach out if you just need to get stuff off your chest and unload.
So until next time, folks. Well, this is the last time we'll see Karl for a couple weeks, right? 1 week?
Yeah, when I come back, I'll have some tales to tell.
Yes. And pictures.
Oh, there'll be pictures.
And sand and sun and warm weather. I want you to bring all of that back with you.
Yes, I will. I promise.
Safe travels to you and enjoy. I know you're there to help, and I know you'll do fantastic at that, but I hope you get some you time to enjoy, and then it's not just a work trip.
It's
wish that for you.
I'm open for wherever I'm led. I'll just leave it that way.
Awesome. All right, folks, until next time, I am Kelly Marie Wolford, founder and principal of Front Seat Life, LLC, and my co-host is...
Karl Shallowhorn from Shallow Consulting, LLC, since you had to throw that in there.
And, well, that's another story. We'll see you guys soon. Be the light.
Be well, folks.